busy with a lot of projects. Almost 20 years of experience as a volunteer in public safety and more likely in the medical side of it, on public events. I also was there in 2011 as responsible for the medical teams in Pukkelpop. So I was there from minute one. First I had to survive the thunderstorm myself and then trying to help all the other people. So I made from my hobby my profession, like I say. I have a background in business engineer, as a business engineer and in ICT projects, and hence the link with emergency management and ICT has a special place in my heart and my guts. And that's the reason why I want to talk about how we are dealing with social media in emergency management in Antwerp, or how we aren't dealing yet with some of the aspects. First of all, Antwerp, city in Belgium, north of Belgium, Dutch-speaking part. This is the entire city. As you can see, we have a part with more than 500,000 inhabitants, and we have a big harbor, second largest harbor of Europe, and one of the most clustered petrochemical sites that are on the world. So we have a lot of risks and things to handle. 2 slides first to explain how we work in Belgium. Peter already gave a brief explanation. I will also keep it brief, but just to give you some ideas on how we work. Our emergency services, our first responders in emergency planning are divided in 5 disciplines. Some of them will be recognizable, I think. So fire department or fire department of companies, medical people, police, or everybody who is taking care of local authority and making sure that everything is going smoothly. Discipline 4 is everything with regarding to logistics, lights, cranes, bulldozers, those kind of things, either in the civil defense, in the military, or private companies. And then something maybe which is a little bit special in our organization is we have a discipline 5 who is responsible for communication and information to the public. Maybe I first have an excuse for my voice, but during the night it disappeared a little bit. It's not about the party, it's just that I'm not feeling well. But okay, we'll manage. So discipline 5, that's the discipline which is responsible for communication to the people. And depending on in which phase we are, it's either the mayor, the governor, or the minister who is responsible for the content of the communication, like Peter already explained yesterday. How is our incident command model? Briefly. Either we have incident modus, and of course in incident modus it isn't forbidden that emergency services talk to each other, as you all know. We engage it even. But it's a small discussion, only one discussion, small discussion, how to handle. The medics are talking with the fire department, which person that is trapped should be liberated first, those kind of things. If this isn't sufficient, we will organize ourselves in what we call a command post on scene, which is the first step. I already have, thank you. The first step of coordinating our command structure. If that isn't enough, we have our command and control center, which is off-site, somewhere in a prepared building. This is a design of how we have done it in Antwerp. So you can see it's a 3-layer model, specially designed for handling crises in our city. Center table, decision making. Second round is for liaisons, people that need to bring the information from the outside in and decisions from the inside out. And then we have for each discipline, we have a working office, working space where they can phone, where they can, without disturbing the meeting and the decision makers. The command post is taking care of the source of the problem. The command center, coordination center, is taking care of the effect area and trying not to interfere with each other, but exchanging information, which is quite a challenge. So we have, in fact, a 2-layer command and control structure. 3 layers if you count in the operational side. Very similar to the incident command model in Britain, with that difference that, for instance, in the UK, it's always the police which is doing the incident commanding, or let's say the top of it, as far as I know. In the Netherlands, they have a 3-layer structure, so it's quite similar. Okay, last slide about how we work today is in our communication model, how it is built. First of all, we have the emergency services on the field. Second part is the population, people that are impacted, the employers, co-workers of the company which has the fire or the incident. And of course, there is the rest of the world who wants to know what's going on. First interaction on which we don't have any grip is the interaction between emergency services, the first responders, and that population. And social media is adding an aspect to it, namely YouTube, because everybody is a journalist now. So when this arrow goes wrong, it will be out. Then we have a third party involved in communication, which is the media or the press. First thing they try to do is talk to the people. So if your first reaction wasn't that good, it will reflect in how it gets into the media. Up till some years ago, you could quite control that. Nowadays, it's uncontrollable because they will find proof in civil journalism. Then we have our command structure in place. For that command structure, at the operational level, we have somebody responsible for dealing with the media, or we try to have one because the resources are not that big in that area. And we have a command and control structure, somebody who is responsible for the information. Of course, the content is the responsibility of the mayor or the governor, but dealing with it is the responsibility of the information manager. How we are managing those two roles in Antwerp is by combining the effort of agencies. So even in a fire, it could be well possible that the person who is responsible for the media contact of the police is taking this role, just to organize the media on site, saying, okay, within 10 minutes, the fire officer is free to give you an explanation. We have to work together because we simply don't have the resources to do it all. And it's going well with our agreements that we have between the different emergency services. Then we try to organize the communication and information. This is in our classical approach, and in most types of disaster or emergencies, we have a face-to-face contact. The biggest emergency we had is about 2,000 people, so 2,000 people you can still put in 2 halls and give them information like that. It won't be possible anymore nowadays. We have to use social media for that one. And of course, we try to have press releases and information to the press, which is also in a changing world. And then we have our Discipline 5 who try to manage all this, but we have to change that approach because managing that, we can't wait for 2 hours to manage all that, which we currently did. The first press release, okay, saying there is an incident at that place, that could go out within 30 minutes, not an issue. But then the rest of the information took 1 hour, 2 hours. As Peter already explained in the train accident, it can take longer and it's simply not accepted anymore by the public. We have to change that way of thinking. So, what are we using as communication channels? And this slide I just wanted to show because I want to emphasize that social media, of course, is not the only channel to communicate with our public, and it will never be the only channel. Because there are people who aren't on the social media, there are people who simply don't have accounts on social media, or for some kind of information, you really need to have a face-to-face contact. So, just to point out that social media is an important one, but it's only one of the channels. The rest of the channels, I think, are already spoken of. Maybe this one, phone and SMS, it's also used in our city and country. We have a system where we can call based on a geographical location all the numbers that are known on that geographical location. So the fixed lines, but also mobiles that are registered at a certain address. It's not the same as cell broadcasting, as was explained, but it is linked to an address. Well, this photo just to illustrate that stating the smoke is not toxic with this photo on YouTube or with this photo on Twitter, there is a problem in credibility. I find that a really nice picture is a picture, by the way, of the fiery Moerdijk, of which Eva told already. But if you look at the ugly face in the smoke, it's quite explaining itself. So those kind of statements will be shown like this in the media, so we can't do it anymore like that. Then there is an issue with, as some of the colleague speakers already initiated, well, do we really have to use social media? And we are firefighters, we are policemen, we don't have to care about what the public is tweeting or putting on Facebook. I don't think so. And it's an evolution we can't beat. Now Christmas Day is coming, New Year's Day is coming, the number of smartphones will really increase in January again, because it's an excellent present gift. So I think social media are alive and kicking, we have to deal with it, we have to join it. We simply don't have the choice. However, joining it in Antwerp means we have to take care that we can come up with the expectations that the public has. If you are present, we have to be present all the way. Or at least tell up front what we can do already and what we can't. Our city is very busy with social media, also about the strategy. Last year we hired somebody whose only task is being a social media manager for the city. But not only for the crisis communication, it's only a small part, but the strategy on how the city should behave on the social media. So also the soft side of it. Well, we have to think about it. We have to see what can we do already, what are we doing already, and what are the challenges. What do we need? Yeah, at least we need some hardware. If we want our communication people ready to tweet to Facebook, at least we have to provide them with a smartphone, explaining to the management that smartphones are not only for the directors, but are really useful tools for people. That's okay. I think since 2 years we have around that gap, and they understand that what water is for a firefighter is a smartphone for somebody who is in communication and information. Then we need a connection. So we've invested in being able to have Wi-Fi routers on scene. Our command posts, our vehicles are equipped with different providers so that we can be online on scene. And even bundling providers so we can have a Wi-Fi broadband connection anywhere we are. It's not an issue anymore. Why do I stress on that? Because a lot of the opponents of social media use this as an argument, say, yeah, but you can't be online everywhere and those kind of things. Well, it's not expensive anymore. We give them the tools, so no excuses. Then you have to choose the software. And I think that's a difficult part. Because which software to use? I think the London Fire Brigade, Glenn, has given a good presentation on how you could divide your interest in saying, okay, LinkedIn is for hiring, Facebook is for the soft side and trying to make sure, Twitter is for live events. That's true, but on the other hand, it's also country specific. If I take, for instance, just the Netherlands and Belgium, Belgium is really a Facebook country. Twitter is gaining some members. However, Holland, I think Facebook is almost dead over there, certainly with the youth, but it's more a Twitter country, I think. At least more than our country. Yeah. Actually on. Yeah. Yeah. So it's an important channel. So those kind of things we have to think about it up front. What should we use? Another thing we have to think about is which account should we use? Because we want to use Facebook and Twitter also for good communication, and it's politically sensitive to have good and bad news brought out by the same account. On the other hand, like I think it was Justina said, if you don't use it in cold periods, or it was even you, Eva. If you don't use it in cold periods, you can't use it in hot periods as well. So that's a dilemma. We have chosen to have a separate account for crises, but we will retweet it by the other accounts so we can have a penetration rate of information. What are we trying to do right now already? We are trying to do claiming the information. So being there on time or as soon as possible. Not the first one, that's not our ambition, it's not our goal, it's even an impossible goal. But being there as soon as possible with validated information to suppress rumors or to validate what is already on. And we try to do it quite quickly. This is a Dutch quote for a fire that we had in a neighbor community in Melsille. I will use this example sometimes more. Where we tweeted about closing windows and doors if you have or if you smell anything. And for more information, referring to websites. That's in fact the strategy we have right now. Second strategy that we have chosen is trying to use the retweets, using influencers. And retweets via non-crisis accounts to have a bigger penetration rate and not to have putting effort in making that crisis account knowledgeable. Like you see here, so this is a personal account of the spokesperson of the police tweeting about a fire. Why the personal account? Because right now the police isn't using formally Twitter yet, but we are already on there with some early adapters in their communication services. It's retweeted by some colleagues who have a lot of followers, and the last one isn't on the slide. It's also retweeted by the account of the fire department, so that it was, or that it has enough influence on the social media. What we try to do is, with all people involved, we have made some clear decisions on how to tweet. It's not always possible, it's not always doable. The clear hashtags, because we know that for monitoring it's needed in the future, so we also try to adapt that already in our process. What is it about? What should you do as a citizen? So be very clear of, if you expect action, that is very clear what you expect. A link to more information, because we can't maintain all the channels. We simply don't have the resources to do. So the first strategy is we refer to others. Like you said in your FEMA presentation, it would be nice to go to the next step and to really be interactive and delivering content on the social media, but we are not that far yet. That's one of our challenges. And trying to be short. If I take the tweet again, you will see here that it's quite a good tweet. It's compliant with the 5 things that we have asked to do. What is it about? Clear hashtag. What should the people do if they have some annoyance of the smoke? And the link to more information. It's a quite short message. Small interludium. SM should not be a fetish. Meaning social media should not be a fetish. Why? Because people are still people. If you evacuate them by buses, bringing them to a shelter because their apartment is on fire and you really need to evacuate the complete building for the entire night, you have to talk to them. You have to be personal, you have to be there. In this incident, I did a communication myself. Each hour, hour and a half, we went back to the shelter, explaining what we were doing now, when they were able to retrieve, what apartments didn't survive the fire, what is the damage in the other apartments, and they really appreciate that. They really appreciate that somebody is standing there, awake with them all night, giving them information so they don't have to use it or to see it in the media. So therefore I say, okay, we are all social media adepts. We really like social media, but please keep in mind it's not the only thing. There is a world outside the computer. Then we have to give a thought about which strategy should we follow. You can use a push strategy, which is the most easy thing, just repeating what you're saying on other platforms and giving a link to the information. The pull strategy is a little bit more different, because then you have to pull out information, meaning that you really have to have a monitoring tool. And the next step is adapt your communication strategy based on the info that you retrieve from the social media. And then the last step, the ultimate step, is a kind of interaction where you really deliver content based on the questions that people have on social media. We are not yet in that stage, simply because we don't know how to manage. And I have heard some interesting tools during this masterclass which will really help in being a little bit more efficient in doing that. So the first thing is pushing. This is an example of a Dutch fire department just stating for the fire on Moerdijk, more information is on that website, if the website was available. To go to the next step, you can't read all the tweets, you can't read all the posts on Facebook. So therefore we have something to do which is called monitoring, which is not an easy task. I think everybody who is into monitoring will agree. There are more and more tools coming up on the market, but if you have to do it manually, it's not feasible. So we're not ready to do that yet. Therefore this slide to say that for us it's still an unknown territory to use it. But still, we have thought about it. What should be the goal of monitoring is receiving the relevant information and then try to communicate directly and targeted based on the information that we see on the social media, adapt our communication strategy. That is what we want to do. We call it web care in our country. But up till now, we haven't found the right tools yet. We haven't found the right level of education for our information people, so we don't go there yet because we are simply not ready. And if we would do that for some incidents, people would have different expectations as we can deliver. So for us, it's still a challenge. Something which is already said by other speakers, how we should organize those monitoring, but more in general, how we should organize coping with social media. We should do it before a crisis. We should think, how can we prepare our platforms? Who is going to do it? We should compose a team up front. We don't have that team yet. What we do have is an agreement between the different spokespersons of the different agencies is to work together. And we will put them in alert at the same time and then trying to find a ad hoc solution for that thing, which is really good working. There is a good cooperation between information management, fire department information responsible, police information responsible, and emergency management. So we always find, or in the past we always found a solution to be on social media, to have some press contacts in time and those kind of things. We have to test everything, like the previous speaker was also aiming at exercising. We really try to embed in our exercise the use of social media. Hence my question, we use a separate platform for that, a simulated platform, or simply cut and paste in Word documents some tweets and Facebooks just to make them aware that there is a world on the social media. And of course we use the same things. We do use misinformation to see how they will react. Then during the crisis we should observe, analyze and inform. But we try not to publish too much, especially not with the guy who is monitoring. He should not publish. He should be able to make a report to the persons responsible for the information so they can adapt their communication strategy. That's a strategy that we have chosen. I don't say it's the only one, but I think for us it will work that way. And after the crisis we should be critical to ourselves, evaluate and try to adapt our plans if needed. Then we have the next step. If we could do monitoring in a good way, we can use it in, let's say, to get information out of it. And I've put this slide of the Moerdijk fire again. Why? Because it's a very interesting slide just to see what you could do about geotagging and trying to convince our operational guys that Twitter is not only a communication tool, but it's also an information tool. I will explain it. The fire was somewhere here. And if you look at the concentration of tweets, you will see that there is a big concentration in those areas. If we now put a map with the model of the smoke next to it, you will see the correlation. So at first the wind was blowing that way, and then the wind changed of direction going that way. And if you look at the number of tweets, it's a one-on-one relationship. I don't have to tell you that this is a very convincing slide for convincing fire officers of Twitter not being only a communication tool. Of course, is it scientifically completely correct? No, it isn't, but you see what we are getting at. Before you have any thoughts that we are really far, we are not using this one already. But we are using this slide really to convince our operational people that we are not annoying them only with information, but that they can use it as well. And then there is an interaction. Interact we try to use in some ways not really urgent crises, something like storms, to say, okay, don't call our 911, which is the 112, our emergency number, but take contact with the local fire department if it's not really urgent. Who is communicating with which account? I already briefly explained it. Who is who on Twitter? We have our city account. It started last year, so you see the number of followers is not that big. Nowadays it's already bigger. I should have taken in a new screenshot, which I forgot. We have our account of the fire department. As you can see, it's an equivalent of a crisis account, so not a lot of followers, and we don't believe in a crisis account to be the first account to use, but we will use it for communicating crisis and then having it retweeted by our city account. And we make some agreements with influential followers. This is an example of a commissioner of police in the city of Ghent, but we are trying to make agreements with influential people in Antwerp during a crisis that they would retweet our messages. Why? Because they have a lot of followers, and that way we can have a penetration rate of information. What should be the criteria to tweet about incidents if you want the people to take up your tweets, to retweet them or to believe you? Is, of course, you should have a number of connections. It should be from a credible source who has the authority to do so. So up front we also discussed what is the mandate of the people that are twittering on that crisis account. It's not one person, it will be several persons. What is the mandate? And there we agreed with our authorities that they can put factual information on it, of course. We don't have to validate that. Once we starting putting number of victims, number of dead people and those kind of things, of course that needs to be validated by the crisis center. That's for sure. So having a mandate and then be authentic. Don't try to measure up things, don't try to cover up things. It's an honest media. Like we already said the term, I also liked it, it's self-cleaning. So if you do that, people will reckon that it is correct and authentic. Here I have a YouTube film of the fire in Melsille, which is a neighboring community. I'm going to show it to you, however it is Dutch. I will translate some important parts in English, but that's the way you can see how people react during a crisis, and it's not, or completely not rational as we expect based on our risk information that we give them up front. Hoping that the link is working. I don't like to drive by, she's saying. The mother and the daughter is saying, oh yes, please go a little bit closer, I'm filming it. So instead of following deviations, go into the street. Police is not already present. I will receive money for it if I can sell it. It's very dangerous. They are telling to each other. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. So just to illustrate that people are really not rational about that one, just because they are sucked into the reality by filming it and putting it on YouTube. And the second example for which I use this video film is to say, we're not ready. We will not be there on time. They see it, they will film it, they will go to it. So we're making a system say, no, it's not possible. We will block out the media and other people from a fire or an incident simply isn't possible anymore. We have now a new type of camera, which is a drone, which is kind of remote-controlled light helicopters. The media is also discovering those kind of things. So making a perimeter even after 1 hour, stating we will not get any image, it will be hard, unless we use scramblers to disable the remote controls. Those pictures were taken where you hear the sirens, but you already saw the video of Eva explaining that one, that people are filming when the emergency services are arriving, so being the first to communicate, no longer possible. Final slide is the conclusion. We see social media as a really important extra channel which we can't avoid in future to communicate, but still we keep in mind that's not the only channel. We really want to stress or emphasize that one. We will have to use it, and in the first phase, that's the phase where we are now, we have a strategy about it, and we will use it to refer to other information links. Then we shouldn't adapt the world to how we are working, but we should adapt our organization to work with how the world is working. And as public authorities, sometimes we're not used to that. We say, okay, we have a system and everybody should fit in that system. I think for social media, it's one example where it doesn't work. We have to adapt our organization. Meaning that we will go to, in our crisis emergency organization, going to validating information instead of validating communications. Up till 4 years ago, the mayor would approve the press release which is going out, meaning that it takes 2 hours, because it takes 1 hour before the mayor is there, then you have to write a press release, making some words. We should leave that path, because it's simply not doable anymore in an evolving and quick world. We should validate the information. This can go out, this can go out, this point can go out, and how we do it, that's for the information managers. Then we should adapt our in our organization to deal with the two-way communication, which is social media, so that we can use it as a communication channel to the citizens, but also get information out about it. And then we have the two major challenges for our organization is how we are going to deal with monitoring, how we are going to cope with that. And the last part, of course, who in our organization is going to do all this? Because incidents are more likely to happen outside working hours than inside working hours, simply because there are more hours that we don't work than that we work. And of course, some cartoon in it that we should take in mind, that first we need to extinguish the fire, or we have to take action before we have to communicate about it. So this was my presentation on how we are using social media in Antwerp.